Hello there, and welcome back to Blue Heinz Garage. Well, we're still working on this. My gauge is actually, it arrived today back at Classic Instruments in, I forgot, Boyne City, Michigan, I believe was the location. I've been tracking it. I think I sent it last Thursday. So in the meantime, I have been spending a little time here trying to get this bumper remounted. And that's led to yet more problems, and the little ones kinda, but same old stuff, doesn't just bolt back on. So what I've done is I have the two ends mounted, and you can see maybe on this end, on each end, there is a little, now you can't see it, it's in here, there's a little plate, a black plate that hangs. Now I can't show you that. It hangs from the fender. It has two bolts, so it hangs from the fender, and that bolt in the bumper goes through it and fastens this wing of the bumper. There's one on each side. So you see, you get that margin right there even, and where the bullet goes back here against this mesh, you get that even. I made a little piece of wood. I don't see it right now. I made a little piece of wood that I could use there as a gauge. So I put it behind this bullet and I located this side, and then I went over and I put it behind that bullet, in other words between the mesh and the bullet, and I located that side. So I knew the front was equal as far as spacing from front to back. And I have this side also nice and parallel there where it meets that body line. At that point, there's two brackets at the front of the bumper. That bolt, there's a bolt going through, there's a bolt that comes out of the back side of this bullet thing here, and there's another bolt here at the bottom. There's one bracket that goes from that over to the frame, where it has two 1/2-inch bolts that bolt into the side of the frame. Same thing on the other side. And then on the inside of the bumper, they have right about here, they have a bracket welded to the back side of the bumper with another bumper bracket that goes, it offsets 2.5 inches because it's that far off the side of the frame. It offsets 2.5 inches and where it meets up with the frame, and it's more like a 3/16 flat plate that bolts to the frame in two locations. So that's what mounts your bumper. Well, in this case, I put the two side wings on, and I got it, like I say, located front to back equally, and parallel, the wings parallel with the body line. And the brackets on the driver's side lined up decently with the holes on the frame. I was able to get that side mounted. The other side, no way. And there's no obvious reason why the other side doesn't work. I do remember taking it apart. There was a stack of washers under one of the two bolts on the big bracket, the long bracket that goes off from the underneath the bullet here, and the little bracket, I don't recall anything being different, and I marked them. I've got stamps. I marked one side P for passenger and the other side D for driver. I did it on both brackets, the big one and the little one, on each side. And what I found was that the little bracket and the big bracket on the passenger side was too short, and it was too short the dimension of the holes. I was the whole hole off. The bracket was blocking the holes, and it was, like I say, it was too short. And you see how close the hole is to the end of the bracket. There's no hogging out the holes. So what I've done, you see the little plate there? What I've done is I've taken a piece of that 3/16 material, And I cut the bracket. I made a little filler plate that we're going to weld into the bracket to extend the bracket. That lines up the holes. Here's where it bolts to the bumper. This and this goes through holes that are in the frame. And the other bracket has a pair of holes that go over these. I don't recall if it goes over both of them or just one of them. For sure it catches one of them. I think this one's all by itself. And I think the bigger bracket does this. I'll lay under the car and I'll show you what the big bracket looks like. What I've done, the big bracket is altogether different than this. See, this one's pretty easy to extend. The big bracket is made more like this, out of this kind of material, where they've done these beads. So I guess it's probably, I don't know if that's called drop forging or whatever, but the big bracket's full of that kind of stuff. And it's angular, so it's difficult to extend that bracket, to cut it and extend it. I was thinking about doing that, and I thought, you know what, if I space the bumper, the bracket off the bumper, it'll give me what I want. I was gonna bolt the bolts to the bumper and then put the bracket over the top of the nuts. Well, that doesn't work because the bolts go through at angles, and when you reach the end of the bolts, the holes in the other bracket will no longer go over the bolts. So anyway, let me crawl under the car without making this too long. Let me crawl under the car and show you what that bracket looks like. I extended to put a stack decided to put a stack of brackets. Start all over. I decided to put a stack of washers behind the bumper and then the bracket. And I've got the washers now in a stack that puts the holes where they align with the ones in the frame. I'll crawl under the car and show you that. Okay, so here's what it looks like under the car. You can see there's that bracket on the back side of the bumper. See if I can get far enough away from this. There. There's the bracket that's bolted to the back side of the bumper. The light you see there is magnetically attached to the frame. So you see that's roughly 2.5 inches outboard of the frame. And there is where, there's the big bracket right there. See it? Where it goes to the frame here. Okay. Goes over to the bumper. And you can see where I have stacks of washers in front of it because it's too short. And you can see the shape of this thing where it would be quite difficult to extend it. There's no place on this bracket where it's flat. Maybe right here above, at where it meets the frame, it's possible. That would be the only place. And you see there, even it's made so that it lands on top of the other bracket and then returns down to the frame. So even here it would be difficult. What I'm thinking of doing, I don't have a lathe. I wish I did, but I don't. What I'm thinking of doing is having some spacers made out of round stock, like roughly the size of those washers. Buy some round stock, bring them to a machine shop, or there's an auto parts store here with where a machinist is one of the employees there, and he does machine work, you know, involved with automotive stuff in the store for hire, obviously. And I could bring some round stock to him and have him make me 2 spacers for this, give him the dimensions. So I might do that, but I can do that later because all you got to do is remove the bolts, remove the washers, put the spacers in, and tighten everything back up again. So for now, I'm going to put it together with the washers behind it. And you can see how dusty this thing is. It's been sitting here now for quite a while in the garage. Actually, it was in the other garage on the back side of the bumper. I had the bumper on once before and I knew it was wrong, so I removed it, and it's been sitting on a cart over there in the other garage. Anyway, that's all for now. I won't waste any more of your time. Just thought you might like to know what's going on. My gauge, like I said, is at Classic Instruments. Don't know how long they're going to have it to correct it or whatever they need to do and send it back to me. I will keep you informed on that too as soon as I have more information. Thanks for watching. As always, love to hear your comments if you have any, so please like and comment. Thank you much. Bye. Okay, well, there's what it looks like after a guy with some professional street rod experience welds that up for you. Remember the piece that I showed you was in there? Can't tell anymore. Okay. Ready to try it. I'm sure it's going to work, unless I gave him the, set up improperly. But anyway, it's time to paint it and put it on there now. Okay, it's Friday, April 16th. And I'm kind of really excited here. I got a big victory. This bumper is completely attached. All the bolts are in and tightened, and the bumper is right where it needs to be. You can look at that grill mesh and all the grid in that grill mesh and see how the bumper aligns with that on each side, nice and even. Lines over here with the body line, pretty even. See where it sticks into the wheel opening a bit? It's pretty much the same on the other side. Really happy with all of this. And the bumper brackets now, with a bit of a modification. I think I've showed you a couple of stills, how to modify those so the holes lined up on the passenger side. And a stack of washers behind the bumper on the passenger side that I'm probably eventually going to replace with a couple of spacers made on a lathe. Solid spacers rather than a stack of washers. But for now, it all fits and it all lines up. Really happy with it. So I won't make this any longer than that. Thanks for watching. Bye. Okay, it's Friday, April 16th. And I'm kind of really excited here. I got a big victory. This bumper is completely attached. All the bolts are in and tightened, and the bumper is right where it needs to be. You can look at that grill mesh and all the grid in that grill mesh and see how the bumper aligns with that on each side, nice and even. Lines over here with the body line, pretty even. See where it sticks into the wheel opening a bit? It's pretty much the same on the other side. Really happy with all of this. And the bumper brackets now, with a bit of a modification. I think I've showed you a couple of stills, how to modify those so the holes lined up on the passenger side. And a stack of washers behind the bumper on the passenger side that I'm probably eventually going to replace with a couple of spacers made on a lathe. Solid spacers rather than a stack of washers. But for now, it all fits and it all lines up. Really happy with it. So I won't make this any longer than that. Thanks for watching. Bye. Welcome back to Blue Heinz Garage. It's 18th of May, and you can see we made some progress here. I got the front bumper installed, and I'm quite happy with that. It is nice and even on both sides and across the front. It's level, in other words, across the front, and the margins at the fenders are pretty even. So I'm happy with that. I had to modify one bracket. I'll put some stills up here. One bracket had to get lengthened. The other bracket, which was way more difficult to modify, I just put some spacers between the bracket and the bumper, and that kind of solved those problems. So there's, I have to say, to begin this video, there's a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel at this point. I think we're getting past the issues. Finally, I got the choke all, I think, finally adjusted. So you start the car now and you touch the pedal very lightly and it stays running. You know, it warms up nicely. So I think the choke is set where it needs to be. The timing, for the time being, I'm going to leave the points distributor in it. I was going to change it and put the electronic distributor back in it, and I checked it. I put the dwell meter back on it, and since I readjusted the dwell, it has not changed, and it's running really nice. I'm quite happy with what I'm seeing on the air fuel ratio meter. So I want to do one more thing. I want to take it down the highway, and I'm going to have probably Scott drive it. I want to bleed the rear brakes one more time, and then I want to take it down the highway while he's driving and I'm watching the gauge and see what it looks like. Everywhere else I've watched it while he's driving it, it looks pretty, I'm happy with it. It's, you know, you're never at perfect. You're never at 14.7 all the time, but it's nice and close. It's right in there. I'm really happy with that. I got the gas gauge back. Remember on the last video I was sending the gas gauge back to Classic Instruments. I did get that back. You see, it's back in the car. And right there is kind of where it reads at full. They calibrated the gauge to the values that I gave them, and the values I gave them was with the sending unit out of the tank. And there's another lesson to learn there. When I put the sending unit in the spare tank, it made 30.5 or 30 point something, 3 or 4 ohms. When you hold it outside the tank and you operate it, it makes right around the same, maybe almost 31 ohms. So, and I sent them all that information, and what they did is they calibrated the gauge to those values. Well, what I found out afterwards is when you put the gauge in the permanent tank and you fill the tank to where the fuel's about to run out the filler, it makes 28.5 ohms. It doesn't make what it makes while it's in the spare tank or while it's in your hand out of the tank. So what it's showing here, actually it's a little more when the ignition is on, it's a little more than what you're seeing right there. It's between 7/8 and full. So like the guy was telling me at Classic Instruments, that 0 to 30 ohm range that these gauges work on is from the mid 50s and the early 50s, even before that. That's a really, really small range. So, you know, 1 ohm makes a big difference. And like he said, as an aftermarket gauge vendor, they're more concerned about the gauge reading accurate at empty. They don't want you running out of gas and the gauge says a quarter of a tank or something like that. That's where, so this gauge, he said, was within spec, but what they did is they took it apart and they calibrated it to the values that I sent them, which was 30.5 ohms. Well, like I said, in the tank it isn't making 30.5 ohms, so, you know, I'm gonna have to live with that. And I know that. I mean, I'm aware of all of that now. And anyway, the other thing I did when I got the gauge back and I put it all back together is I touched up the black at the bottom of the dash between the steering column and the kick panel. So, which meant taping up a lot of the inside of the car. But that's done. So like I said, that's done. The rear end is in. You know, the clutch is in, the transmission is in, all that stuff we ran into when we first put it together. We're about past it. I've got this strip here installed. I finally got the fasteners for that. You see, that's done. So, you know, I got to put the hood on it and bleed the rear brakes. Like I said, take it down the highway and see what the air-fuel ratio looks like, and it's done. So, like I said, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's it for now. You can see here, been helping Scott working on his car. He's got, remember I told you, I think he's got a 57 Chevy he's had since he was 14. He's 53 now this year, August of this year. And that car's never really been completely together. He's got the chassis at his house. We're going to bring the body here and put it on the chassis using the lift here. He's got a lot. He's had 3 bodies in the course of this whole thing, and this is the stainless exterior trim mostly, and some other odds and ends. What's left of the harness, and you know, that was under my house. I drug it all out of there this morning. He's starting to gather up stuff for his car, and you know, make sure he's got what he needs, and just locate everything. It's been so long. It's all in boxes and stuff. But anyway, we're building another one of these electric parking brake setups like I put on this car. We're fabricating that right now. I think I can put some pictures of that fabrication in this video as well. All right, so look for that. We did the one on this car, and in the course of doing this one, setting this one up, we learned a few things. So obviously the second one's going to be a little nicer and a little better, I think, than this one is. So like I say, we're in the middle of that right now. He's making the housings that hold the actuators that pull the cables. He's got the cables ordered. They might even be here today or tomorrow, I think. So that's working out nice. The second time around is a little easier, and like I say, you know where the pitfalls are and where you can modify to make it better. So we're doing all of that. Like I said, I'll show you some pictures, some still pictures. All right, so yeah, that's it for now. Short one this time. I've been doing all kinds of other stuff. It's that time of year. Been spending a lot of time in the garden. Like I said, I spent a weekend or so helping Scott doing that. I call it the spark brake because it's electric parking brake. Anyway, that's it for now. See you later. Thanks for watching. Comment and you know, whatever. Like and comment if you're so inclined. Thank you. Bye.